Okay, two things. Firstly, Dustin was not able to join us because he had some scheduling issues, so we had to leave him out on this recording session. And secondly, I didn't realize that during the recording session that the audio wasn't recording for like the first 30 minutes, so I'm just going to cut in where we actually had the audio coming back in. Yes, I know, stupid mistake. I just recently moved, so everything got reset on my computer. All the settings had to be redone, so yep, always double check your settings when you're doing stuff like this, guys.
Never really saw it. And I saw it after, so I didn't really know what to expect. It's as subjective as any other scorecard.
Okay, fair.
I don't think it's perfect, but I mean, it's purely subjective as anyone else's, based on whoever's judging it. I feel like it's still based on whoever's judging it. It's not, it's not a perfect scorecard.
So just to let you guys know, for some reason my audio was not recording. So we're just going to keep going as if we were doing it. I'm just going to cut in and just say, hey, we had some issues and this is where we're going to cut in. So
okay, that's fine.
But yeah,
okay,
yeah, go ahead, Josh. You go first.
Yeah, so I was actually talking about this with Peter before we started recording, that I thought the G3 scorecard was interesting in their showmanship category because it placed heavy emphasis on like either A, the expression of personality, or B, the expression of a fictitious persona. And I thought, at least from an outsider, watching the videos getting posted online, it had a huge impact on the way people threw shows, right? Like, even, like, I saw a couple of people, like, what's his name? I think he went by Little B? Or something like that. But also, even someone like Mumbles, like I've seen Mumbles throw, like, the shows that he's comfortable with. And seeing some of his performances here definitely played more into that. Do you think that the way that the scorecard was weighted had like that effect, or do you think that's just something that I'm seeing like afterwards?
I feel like I'd have to ask everyone individually, but I feel like I don't think most of us looked as in-depthly at that scorecard as previous competition. I kind of feel like we all just came in and did our thing, and this is just the result of people judging off that scorecard.
Okay.
In their mind, that event, that's basically it. I feel like a majority of us weren't really like, we came to just do the thing. There really wasn't too much like heat on like, I should have won, or something like that,
No,
it was pretty much pretty chill.
I honestly would agree that the majority of the community was very good sportsmanship like.
That's good.
Yeah.
So this is where I think I really liked seeing the difference between online competition discourse compared to in-person competition discourse. So one of the things that I will certainly say that was an eye-opening experience to me is just the differences in interaction and overall sentimentality that people had towards each other compared to how we see it online.
Yeah, do you want to go more into that actually?
I think that everyone understands that when it comes to reading things on the internet and how people portray themselves on the internet, it's vastly different than how they are in person. I mean, you lose nuance within text. You know what I mean? So sometimes you're going to read it the way that you're going to read it, and it's going to come off the way that you read it, even if that was not the intention or not. And we can go into a whole different episode about death of the author theory if you want, but not here.
Right.
And I feel like that's what comes into play when it comes to these online interactions, is that it's how you are perceiving it, and a lot of people say my perception is the reality, when sometimes it actually isn't. But besides the point, but seeing how even when people lost in the first round, they're just like, well, I'm just glad I was here and people got to see me compete and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, that's a good takeaway. I'm glad people are not letting this, drop out of the first round experience ruin their entire day. They're just like, well, I got all this day for trading now, so I'm gonna go hang out and have some food and stuff. So I'm like, all right, well, at least it's nice to see people have that kind of optimism.
Right.
But of course, I would certainly say at the end of it all, just hearing from a lot of the competitors, especially like the finalists between Merc and Mumbles, Unfortunately, Krusty wasn't anywhere to be seen afterwards. I don't know what happened. I guess he either went home or something. I don't know. Their mentality approaching this competition was just something I did not expect.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I feel like it kind of makes sense, you know, based on, in my opinion, a lot of like, I guess like attitude changes that have been happening with like certain things like pit battles. You know, for the most part, a lot of people are in there just because they want to get better. You know, and also it's kind of like what you said. Like a lot of interactions in person can be vastly different from the way that they happen like online. Like I've definitely have met people that I didn't really understand who they were, and like before I met them in person I was like, I don't really understand why they're talking this way, but like after meeting them in person, it's like, okay, I have this whole other context for who they are now. So like it's actually like they're not like as bad as some other people make them out to be, or you know, anything like that. In fact, I've had this conversation like literally like a couple weeks ago. Someone was like, I don't like this person. I'm like, really? Because I've met them in person and they're actually really cool. I feel like you would actually get along if you guys actually met in person first. You know, like
that's why I will always value in-person interaction over online interaction, because I'm not saying this is a mark on the community. This is just human nature to me.
Right.
We're all really fake online.
Right.
As much as I feel like I put out my authentic self, because I don't really feel like I act when I put out my content, people probably have a very different perception of me, of my content, compared to how they saw me when they saw me at G3.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's hard because like you're inherently, the way you communicate online as opposed to in person like is just vastly different, right? Like I feel like in a lot of ways human beings haven't really figured it out as much as we've had several decades at this point to like really build it up. But you know, I totally get you. Actually, speaking of matches, any favorite matches that you guys saw or like competed in? Like
I'll let McKinley go first since he competed. I want to hear what his favorite matchups were.
Yeah.
Personally, watching, my favorite matchup was watching PM Surge versus BMO. That was fucking wild. Seeing him hit the Running Man in person, that was crazy. So, he said, like, it was so nasty. Very close match. I was just trying to do a lot of things there. I was really walking around talking to people, trying to see what I could see. I was short. I feel like we should have had like projectors or something. Maybe that would have been could have been cooler.
That's an idea for next time.
I think I talked to Scotty about this, and I know Scotty pretty much is on the same wavelength as me, so he already knows like half the things I would like to see implemented. But that was one of the things that I wanted to see, because it was kind of like my confusion point because from my understanding from like IGC, they actually had like the projections and they actually had featured matches. And so to me, and I'm sure if Teddy watches this, which I hope he does, because we have nothing but, you know, good points to bring to you, because I can't complain with how well it ran, even with all the shortcomings that it did. But he did have a couple of high profile matches, and I can't, like, Surge versus BMO was one. There was one with Clarity, and I can't remember if she was going. Imperial. That was another big high profile one that, as me as a spectator, I was unable to watch because there was so many people around that match. You couldn't see it. Like,
You're like, all right, the recording will get it.
I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to watch it when the recording comes out, because there's no way in hell I can get in here to watch this match. And those were like high profile matches that I wanted to see. So if you going forward, if they're actually able to implement the projector thing, maybe two stages should be the feature round sections, because there's at least two matches per round that people wanted to watch the most. Like, you can see the clusters of people at different stages each round, because those were the high profile ones. Putting those on the feature match stages so everyone can see those on the projector would have at least mitigated a lot of that issue that would have came up, I guess is what I would call it. But that's just coming from a spectator.
Okay.
Yeah. Something else that happened too is during a couple of the matches, because the cameras would be on the stage with the levers, right? Sometimes that camera got knocked off.
Oof.
During the match?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Some
heard
during.
there were several like issues when it came to recording the matches. Like I heard one thing about someone
They're
that
like falling off stage and shit, and like out of bounds.
or like the camera settings were like they somehow got botched somewhere along the line or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, they
yes.
pressed the wrong button
So
yeah.
this is something I
or
didn't
kept
know.
going.
Yeah, there's something that I didn't know about GoPro, and it's I guess their screen sensitivity, and it's so easy for people to put it into a time lapse mode.
Right.
It's so heated when it happens.
So I
Happened to
didn't
me
really
2 days
know.
ago.
I really didn't know that this was an issue. Like I remember one time Megasloth recorded like 6 different shows, but he had it all in time lapse. So he's like, "Here's the time lapse,"
Yep.
and it's him just and it like.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, but I didn't know that this is such a common problem with GoPro. Not with Glovers, but with GoPro. Because I guess like I actually looked into like GoPro complaints like on Reddit, and people always talk about it going into a time lapse mode or going into a different mode just because something brushed the screen.
Yeah, I think they try to mitigate that with there is a feature, right, where you can I think screen lock it, where you can still record, but you have to physically press buttons and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I mean it's a learning experience. I think that going forward, I think people know how important, getting all that footage is. It might just do well to like have not even a team, but maybe like a core like 3 or 4 people involved with being in charge of just purely recording, making sure like every round all the cameras are set up properly, none of the settings have been botched, all that. Because I know, for example, like someone like me who's like waiting for that footage and then hearing later that some of that footage was lost. I mean, it's understandable that it happens, but it is still something that it's like it's no one's fault, right? Because human error is a thing, but it makes no one feel good, because I'm sure people running G3 didn't want that to happen. Like that's
Yeah, no.
like it's like
There's nothing that we can do, say, or anything that's going to change the past. What happened has happened, and we can only give our hindsight ability.
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, this is a thing that kind of surprised me, and it threw me off guard as a spectator, is that the stage area was not roped off. It's the best way I'm going to put it. There was no fence to keep the area that people competed blocked off from the spectators. So that threw me off. Now, I can already hear people in the distance right now making some argument points, which I will understand and I can concede to. Like, well, if something like what happened has happened, then everybody else who's been around at those stages who were recording those matches could fill in the blanks with their footage, which makes sense, and I understand that, I agree. But if it was roped off and if all the staff members actually checked all of the cameras before each round, make sure everything was set properly each round, and then recorded those matches, then you're mitigating the possibility of somebody like brushing up against the screen, setting a camera in the wrong position. But again, I also, like I said, I don't think Teddy actually had the manpower that he needed to pull stuff like that off. So a lot of the things that we can sit here and talk about can be solved by more people working.
Yeah, actually, why don't we go into that a little bit? Because one of the things that surprised me and I thought was really cool when all this first started happening, like before the event happened, is that event is basically a grassroots effort. I mean, we have someone who I would consider like a social leader in the scene, spearheading it, being in charge of it, running it. But also, this is not backed by like amazing lights. This is basically funded by the community through what I believe like ticket sales, like jersey sales, right?
Merchandise sales, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like this is like something that we kind of put together. But again,
on the community.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was really cool because me, I was actually kind of cynical. I was like, are people actually willing to like? Can we actually come together to do this? Not to say that I didn't think it could happen, but it's it's difficult.
See, that brings me right back to my being taken off guard with how much people interacted with me and how much of a difference you see the interaction in person compared to online.
Right. But yeah,
people could probably sit here and say the online, like the atmosphere of online, especially like GL, is cutthroat. I guess is the word that I would use, to describe it.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, it can be very cutthroat competitively. But when it comes to actual in person, the best way I can describe it is like, you guys seen those videos online where like two dogs are separated by some barrier, like a door or a fence, and they're like going at it and barking and stuff, and then they remove the barrier and they just chill out and just hang out.
Right.
That's the best way I can describe it. Once you remove the fourth wall of the internet from the community and you put them in person in the same room, they're not going to be rawr at each other. That's the best way I can describe it. So.
Right. But yeah, the reason I bring that up is that, despite the fact that we were able to make this happen, the fact of the matter also is that if you're going to do things grassroots, oftentimes you're working with a set number of resources that, if you're going to compete against an event that has like a proper sponsor, that has like a business behind it, like putting money into it to make it happen, you're just going to be working with less resources, and it's like what you said, both of you, what you said. This is not really Teddy's fault because, one, this is the first event of its kind in a while with the resources that we have. So, I mean, if in your opinions, like, what are some ideas that you guys potentially had involving like the allocation of said resources, right? Because the thing is, we can talk about, like we should get more people to do this and that. We should have more people do that. But, it's like you're asking people to basically take on a job. So, I mean, do you guys have any ideas about how to go about something like this? Because I have a couple, but I do want to hear your thoughts.
McKinley, you can go first if you want to. As a competitor,
so,
from your point of view.
From my point of view, I mean, like you're saying, you could definitely provide more jobs, but then you have to get people to work it. And be consistent about it. I think this is only inspiring more people to go check it out if we do this again, which I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
He could reach out more to people and see if they want to work. I don't think there was even an open application. It was more of networking, who he's talked to, and him reaching out that way. But then you're also taking on that, okay, it's how thorough is that interview process going to be coming work day on that day?
Right.
As far as what jobs, I mean, yeah, you could definitely have more cameramen, backup cameramen. I think that would have been super sick and something that hasn't been done. It's not only do you have the stage shoulder view, but there's something going around, right?
Yeah.
And like someone capturing all that. We haven't had that, and then they splice that in together later. You could have more of an area dedicated, because there wasn't another DJ able to spin. I feel like if they had another room for more music, people would have gotten their trades in. It would have been cool. But then,
yeah, it's a tough
question.
It's a tough question. Which is.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, it's a tough question, which I'm sure that this is stuff that Teddy and everyone else like behind G3 have asked. These are active problems that they're probably trying to work on. But at the same time, it's, as someone who's worked for a lot of small businesses, I understand the frustrations they're probably going through. But I think that it's good to bring this stuff up because as a community, I think we all want this to work, right?
Yeah, I feel like we just don't know what he had to work with. I think he had like 50 to 60 people, so it was a pretty big production. But I just don't know who all was doing what, so I don't know what they lacked in particularly. It appeared like they had everything for the most part. There were just, again, tiny bumps in the road, and that's where I was saying where the stops and goes went. Because people who wanted to trade, you could trade during the match, and then you're either sacrificing watching a match to trade.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But
then that song's only so long.
Yeah, to me that got compounded when everyone decided to show up at the time that they were supposed to start.
Exactly.
Show up when they needed to show up. So The way I will certainly say that, like how you kind of put it, he needs to be a little bit more strict on like time constraints and stuff like that. And this is something even I taken away from my experience being the spectator and somebody who's also is trying to be a content creator. I should have probably gone over there when I needed to, around like 11 and stuff, so I actually had the time to interview the people that I needed to interview and actually have the voice to do so. Because that was the biggest problem I had at the end of it. So I didn't have a voice, and I didn't want to sound like some dying, raggedy old Ann doll sitting in the corner trying to get these interviews with people.
Joe didn't want to sleep. Joe didn't want to sleep.
Yeah, it was just...
Damn you, Joe.
To me, I just like, holy crap, I can't believe... That was my learning experience. It's like I needed to pace myself and not work myself so hard, especially since I blew out my voice the first night. But I think getting people who are competing to show up early, like where they need, like even well before they're the event's supposed to start. So that way you get everybody on the same page. You let them know like this is how they're gonna do it. And to me, they should just had the competitors separated from the general populace and just kept them separated and just got them through the rounds and stuff and just kept the time management there, so that way they could have all the time they needed for the trades afterwards. Because to me it's like you're there to compete, get what you are there done first before you get to indulge in all your pleasures, business before pleasure mentality, so
Right.
I
It
learned
felt
that
more like a competition, martial art style that way too, because you have the showcase people in the back, and there's straight up not audience members at all. They're straight up in like a little waiting room. Everyone's kind of just chilling, warming up, whatever.
Now, there was a balcony section. I don't know if you actually saw the layout of the Globe Theater, but there is a balcony section. Like, there's a whole section up above that you could have stuck all the spectators there. So that way they could have looked down at all the matches and seen all the matches. Now, granted, I know a lot of people are like, well, I didn't want to see that point of view. Well, I don't want you in the way to distract the camera crew, the competitors, the production staff. Like, we have an event that's going on here, and this is a lot of money that Teddy's dropping for us. Now, granted, yes, we gave him the money by purchasing merchandise and stuff from him, but he's providing this for us so we can have something like this. Because, I mean, who else is throwing an in-person competition on the scale as this?
Yeah, I was like on a scale. I was like, plenty, but
so
now we're like a full venue and like this.
Yeah, so to me, it's just like we made this happen. We should at least give the respect and the professionalism that is required to make this run as smoothly as possible. So that's where I think me and McKinley really started to understand, like, okay, this is where the community's mentality is, and this is where the organizer's mentality is, and the community needs, to me at least, the community needs to understand the seriousness of what's on the line. Teddy's dropping probably well over $100,000 to get all this done. You know what I mean? So it's like this isn't like some charity event thing. Like, no, this dude's literally putting his business capital into something that probably doesn't show a lot of good dividends. You know what I mean? I as far as I can tell, he broke even. I don't know if he even made a profit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
he also did it for the credit of like the resume of being able to run a mass production like that.
Exactly. Like, yes, I will never take that away, regardless of how little money he put into it. It shows his dedication. It shows his determination to follow through with what he says. And most of all, as much as I know, and especially this is coming back from like the 2014, 2015 era of gloving community, but the dude put the money where his fucking mouth is. Where are you guys? Just, right?
Right. So, in that regard, I would like to kind of focus on something that Peter, you and I actually talked about a little bit before.
Okay.
Before we start the recording, and it's about the full movement competition, right? I know I got a bit of your opinions, but I would like to hear McKinley's opinions about this as well. So,
considering that he also competed in it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is perfect. As when I first heard about G3, that was actually the thing that interested me the most, right? I thought it was a cool idea, and I saw a lot of the footage coming out from that, and I thought it was really neat. I've heard a lot of people since then talk about it and say like it's not something that they're incredibly interested in going forward. I wanted to hear your thoughts mostly about the movement competition, its place in G3, and what do you think going forward? Like, is this something that you want to keep seeing, and why?
I definitely want to. I think it was a nice balance, or a nice change of pace and refresher, kind of like in between each round of things. Like there was round one of all the glovers, then there was round one of all the dancers, vice versa, and it just kept going like that. And it was cool seeing two different belts getting put up, you know. I would be open to it more, you know. But that would need a bigger venue. You know, if we started doing like we were talking about way back gloving too, you know, we start pulling out the different props and everything, and mixing it up, full character, full. Some people were dressed up in somewhat costumes, like Joe brought out his Waluigi hat, you know, stuff like that. It could be interesting.
Merc
I personally
cat
enjoyed
ears
it. Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby.
I would certainly say somebody like me, like granted, everybody already knows that I have a background in appreciation of dance. I like watching So You Think You Can Dance, World of Dance. I used to like watching Dancing with the Stars when celebrities are meh right now. That's all I'm going to say about celebrities right now. So to me, I like this idea that he's trying to incorporate another thing into it, because it's something I kind of learned, or I'm starting to learn, or I'm starting to see with other content creators within the gloving community. We're kind of latching ourselves onto another thing to work on in terms of content and have it like go tandem with gloving. Jess, for example, is doing the lightsaber stuff. I remember when he first started doing it, and you literally see him put in the work and like, I have never seen somebody literally put out so much content just practicing the same thing over and over and over again. But here he is doing it. Can't take that away from him. And you know what? I can't say anything bad about it. It makes me look like an idiot, so I'm just saying. But it's something I just kind of notice other people are like, oh, yeah, I'll do my gloving thing, but I'm also going to do this thing because I want to just expand my audience's horizons, basically. But like I said before we started recording, is that I feel like Teddy's also trying to show, as well to the gloving community, to the greater dance community, that we're very much in the same realm of expression as them, and trying to gain that legitimacy with them and recognition from that greater dance community. Because I don't know about McKinley, but I talked to a lot of the dancers that were in the movement competition, and just getting to pick their brain on how they dissect their reality of expression around their craft was something that I didn't really think was going to impact me, but it was more of an eye-opener because it made me look at things differently compared to how I've always done, or how the gloving community has always taught the community itself how to look at it. So
Yeah. I mean, I know previous competitions had orbiting, you know, alongside gloving. So what if that was a thing where each year they changed it up and reached out to a different community, right? Right, each year, but each competition. Like, all right, and what next time you got boy? Next time you got lightsabers, you know?
Yeah, and to me,
that'd be interesting.
That definitely makes me feel like how it was with Magic the Gathering. They have different formats that their Pro Tours would have. Like one would be a modern Pro Tour, another one would be a standard and draft, another one would be legacy, another one will be pioneer. So it's literally kind of bringing a different variety of showcasing within gloving. But again, to me, gloving is in this weird nexus between two different entities, between dance and flow arts. You know, it's this perfect little hybrid kind of deal. So I feel like we don't only have one extra pool to jump into to like gain more of an audience. We have two. And it's just the different aspects that come with what we've made together, kind of deal. You know, if you like more of the light, flowy stuff, you have the floor aspects. If you like the technical movements and concepts, you have the dance aspect of it. So that's where I think the other thing is for a lot of people need to understand when it came to this in-person competition, it's that we really are starting to carve out our own little niche in society outside of the rave culture, essentially.
Yeah, you know, we've talked about that a lot in the past, and I know it's definitely something that a lot of people want us to head towards. I'm gonna ask you guys a question that I personally so I feel like the three of us all agree personally that the full body element of the competition is really neat. We would like to see it keep going. My question is that what the rest of the community wants? Because I'm not so sure. Like I talked to several people before today how they felt about the full body part, and a lot of them were just like, it was cool, but we could do without it. They'd rather have that time to trade. So it's like, as much as someone like me would love to see gloving like really embrace like these outside styles to really like consolidate it into like the next evolution of whatever gloving is that what the majority of people want? Because at the end of the day, it's not really about what one individual wants. Like, it's about how like the collective is going to push stuff in a certain direction, right? I don't know. What do you guys think about all that?
I feel, again, if they were there earlier, they would have traded.
Right.
But also,
I agree.
I feel if you keep reaching out, maybe we can inspire them to make competitions and invite us, right? And you know, I feel like if we keep doing that as light bugs ourselves, we can do that. But I can understand why, yeah, we could do without, and then you have more time to trade. Then we have like multiple sets, right? You can have a set afterwards. And I know Teddy also considered the time to end it a little earlier-ish, because he knows people are going to want to go to their kickbacks and split up and go to their meetups after, and want to get people time to explore LA and enjoy that too, right? So it's hard to please everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was the best attempt at doing that, you know, because I feel like it's better to reach out. I definitely feel like that's better. And just, those people might be back, you know?
Oh,
they
right.
might come back, even if it's not dancing. And if we do it again, something else, something different. And he just keeps doing that. I'd rather do that. Keep the melting pot.
Yeah, so for me, I will certainly say, like I made these concessions before. I understand why he was bouncing back and forth between the two, but that kind of throws some confusion off. And when it comes to competitions that are incorporating different stuff within competition, just block those off. Essentially, we're gonna go through the movement competition, then we'll go through the gloving competition, or however you want to format it. I understand like you're trying to keep things going as time constraints are happening, and I'm not gonna sit here and tell your judges to judge faster. Like you, Josh, you and I had that kind of conversation. So it gets really hard when you get to people who are so even keeled on technique and skill and skill levels. You know, and I'm not gonna sit here and try to say, you know, how to do it better, because I don't have answers to that. But I certainly would say, having it blocked off in the fashion of you go through one competition before you start the next one will help. Now, let's not do what happened at 2016 IGC, which is do the normal one and then the legendaries bracket, and the people who are in both don't get any time and they're already exhausted. Especially, I think Puppet was one that really talked about how mentally and physically exhausted he was by the time he got to like round 3 of the Legends bracket. So it's kind of putting your foot down is basically where me and McKinley kind of agree on. It's just like, to me, you're needing to be serious about this, which Teddy is. And if people are not going to be taking it seriously, you just got to cut them off. You know what I mean? This is why I can't help but agree and support Joe's decision that if you signed up for his Squid Games and you drop out on the first round, you are not allowed to sign up for the next comp, because he wants serious people who are going to take it seriously. He's not letting people fuck around with his time, which is something I wholly commend and support, because people are devoting time, and with how society is now, people don't have that much time to give to waste like that. You know what I mean? So I can't hate him. I can't knock him for having that decision. I know a lot of people think that's a little, what's the word I'm looking for here? Harsh. But it's being serious for a reason.
Yeah, and I feel like
Joe definitely has lucky on that though, because I feel like Teddy did pave a way for us to have the situation of we need a competition to do that though. I don't think Teddy could have just, hey, yeah, we're doing that.
I mean, in my opinion, I think he totally could have, because I feel like that mentality, right, that you guys are talking about is something that's weird to me, because outside of any other subculture, outside of this subculture, any other kind of competition setting, like martial arts, like other dances, like it's like if you're not there for your slot, they're just gonna disqualify you, you know? And I think, like, sure, I can see why Teddy wanted to be lenient, because he saw like the competitor ticket as like a service, right? But it's like oftentimes it's like the reason why people pay for competitions is a chance for A, I guess, the glory, and B, that prize pool, right? Like there's money involved. And what you're basically doing is putting money in to get the chance to get those prizes and get that first place spot. Guaranteeing yourself a competitor spot, it's not really like a service like you're paying for a music festival, you know? It's like you doing this is giving you the opportunity to compete, but having the opportunity is a privilege and not a right, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree. The other thing is, as well, as there were some pretty reasonable stakes online that really made me question how people take stuff like this seriously. I mean, to me, I always understood the bigger the stakes, the more serious you should be taking it. There was cash money on this comp. Like, you were going to make money competing, and if you won, not only did you get a mass amount of glory, but you were going to win a cash prize. Like, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's to me, that's where I really kind of came down to. This is where it's just more the reflection on the community's part rather than the organizers, because you can clearly tell Teddy amongst his company are very serious of what they're trying to do. They're trying to make this a very serious thing, a legitimate thing, not for them, but for us. I mean, it's one of these things that I felt like the community's always said that they want to feel legitimized and the amount of work they put into it. But if you're not putting the amount of work of being serious about it, that's how people are going to perceive it and how to take it. If you're not serious about it, why should they be serious about it? You see what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think
this is where the whole squabbling in the community comes about. It's just a hobby, bro. Well, to some people it isn't. And why are we arguing about somebody who has a bigger devotion on it? If you're not devoted on it, why are you stomping on somebody else who has a bigger devotion to it?
Yeah, I think in an ideal situation, what it is that the people who are in this community right now, then the people who want to stay for a long time, because I know for someone like me, I want to be involved for a long time. I might not be like performing or doing all the stuff that I do, like make videos forever, but I do want to like be involved, you know? I think a lot of the people who are in that mindset, I think it's one of those things where it's like those who want to create the infrastructures are going to be sticking around, so that the next generation of people coming in, they're going to be like how old we were when we were first jumping in. They're going to be like 16, 17, 18, early 20s, you know, they're going to be young kids. And it's like, what are we going to set up for those newcomers? Are we going to set up basically what we have, which is what it is now, like a small grassroots kind of thing where people have to become their own infrastructures? Or are we going to have some infrastructure set up for them so they can feel like they're taking part in basically like a subculture, like a real subculture that like has all of these infrastructures of legitimacy in place by the time they first really get here?
Yeah, essentially
Right.
like having
You
a
can't just be
self-sustaining,
autonomous.
yeah, like a self-sustaining ecosystem.
Right.
You know, which we did. Like that's why we had the first Renaissance during 2012 to 2014, maybe even 2015 at the latest, where we just had all this explosion of content, explosion of products, explosion of notoriety. We had Monster Energy sponsoring IGC. We had companies making, all these different things. Things were going for us, and so it showed that we are capable of doing this. Do we have to get a company launched to the same echelon that Amazing Lights got to have it happen again? Maybe. Who knows? Who could that be? Who knows as well? Like there are things that are happening, and there's aspects within the community that are changing. Some people might say for the better. Some people may say for the worse. I feel like certain changes are happening or for the worse, and there are certain changes happening for the better. I just think we need more changes that are happening for the better than the worse, because I feel like it's the inverse right now. There are more changes happening for the worse than the better.
Gotcha. Actually, okay, so we just had this discussion, and I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. It might potentially wrap this back around to what we were just talking about, right? But so first, I want to ask McKinley. I'm gonna go back and ask about it was called Prometheus, right? The So I know you touched upon it a little bit, but do you mind going into what their general ideal was of gloving, I guess, before and after like the festival? Because I know you said you talked to a couple people, and I'm very curious.
I like this question already.
And I can also even give you another side comparison thing.
Sure.
Remember how I went to Domads before?
Oh yeah.
Domads was basically like a hybrid of G3 and Prometheus. That's really what that was. Now that I've experienced all of this, Domads was a combination of both. Okay. And I feel like it was like the best of both worlds, but given I need the second one to see if it'll get better. But I'll touch on that why. So Prometheus, you're saying how was the structure?
Oh no, like what was their perception of gloving?
Oh, of gloving. Okay.
Before and after, because I'm sure that you kind of had an influence on their thoughts, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of them would told me that they've had like a couple of shows, but really like 90% of them told me that was the best show they ever had in their life. I feel like most people they've gotten were like hand wavers. They weren't really telling them stories.
Right.
They could tell they weren't taking it seriously, and they liked that I actually had a story. I had a whole act, and it was like a thing. So they appreciate art for art, just like how they look at their own props. So that's where that respect came from. But I guess it's just that much of a low-key art form. People don't really do it over there. It's really more about the fire. That's what they like. They like the burns. But they don't even have a lot of tutters either, though. Tutting was pretty foreign to them. Like they had a handful of concepts, but really no direction. They were all just like, "Oh yeah, that's a lot." And even with the 2 hours I was able to teach, they all needed the contact info, and I definitely let them record the session. Like here's like a review of everything that we just learned, because there's just so much, even in 2 hours that you can teach somebody.
Right.
Comparing it to Domads and Prometheus. So Domads basically was just take away the workshops, and everyone's just hanging. It's more a music festival vibe, with an emphasis on, hey, there's a burn showcase and there is a gloving competition and there's a big dome that's where the gloving competition was held. There's an outdoor of the dome and the indoor of the dome. That's where the DJ was actually mixing. And there's speakers on the outside playing everything. And it was pretty sick. So if you wanted to watch it, you could. If you didn't, you didn't have to. But the pros and cons of it was because, again, the whole time thing, people not taking themselves seriously and being good on being there on time. The competition got delayed a little bit, so that pushed things back for the performers who wanted to burn and stuff like that. You know, pushes everything back, the whole schedule, and you can't be having that at a music festival. So, yeah, having judges, having enough people competing. At first, there wasn't enough because people got scared, I feel, or got nervous.
Really?
Because they wanted to at first, but then when it came to it, I don't know. So they had to go and convince people to do it, and then they had a good time. But if you have the right, and because it was really small and it was just local, you know. What if we made that bigger and had an incentive for out-of-state people to come?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could be pretty cool. But it had the best of both worlds. It wasn't too much of either, I feel. And it was more than one day.
Right.
And you camped.
Okay, so it's gonna lead into a certain thought process. And you know, this is more specific to me. Like, I'm not saying like everyone thinks this way. So it's always kind of confused me in certain respects. Why competitions are like the lead, I guess, draw for like a more like international like glove meet, right? Because not to say that I don't like a good competition, you know, but like when it comes to competition, you're there for a specific reason, right? You're there to compete.
There's a purpose to be there.
There's a purpose, right? You're there to compete. And if you're not there to compete, it's because you want to watch these matches, you know? And one of the, I guess going back to talking about like a lot of the attitudes that were among competitors, for both the gloving and like, you know, in terms of the placement of like the full body competition, is that a lot of people wanted more time to simply trade. But it kind of confuses me personally, because if you're going to go to a competition, the highlight is the competition. It's not to hang out. It's also one of the reasons why like I didn't immediately want to go, because for me, I'm more drawn towards things like the Texas kickback, where the point of that is to trade. It is to meet people and have a good time, you know?
This is a gathering. This is where you are literally doing the same thing that we've done in the rave scene, just hyper-focused on a particular aspect that was born within that culture that we all want to be a part of. So, like, we're all like-minded people in gloving, wanting to do gloving things. That's why that kickback worked so well. I was definitely agree. Yeah, I felt like a lot of people who there, they wanted to do so many things so all at once and like try to get it all done. But within a single day, that was even hard. Like, even for me, like, I thought I was gonna have 2 days to be out there to actually enjoy it, and I was like, all right, well, I get the second day. Fortunately, I couldn't. I had to leave on Sunday to get back home because Jason needed me to be home on Monday.
Right.
So, you know, I kind of like lost out on that. The other thing is, well, it's like maybe there was a communication error, you know, because it's just like, well, Teddy did set time aside for us before and after the comp for these trades and stuff. So to me, it's like, was there just a miscommunication fault somewhere between
I don't
him
think that's
and
it.
the audience, that they just like, oh, well, we'll just show up at the time we need to be there for the competition, and like, well, we have the 2 hours before that so you can be, one, warmed up and prepared for your comp, and two, you get to meet and greet all your people. So that's where I'm like,
Everyone went to that meetup the night before and
that is true.
got super tired, and then they wanted to use that as a justification. I'll get there when I get there, and like, yeah, people just have poor time management, and then justifying that as, well, customers, right? We should have had this No.
Yeah.
No.
Get
Also-
Gardner when the event started.
And also,
All
as
that
an
looking
outsider, right? And also, as someone out living outside of LA, like everyone knows, like the legend behind LA's
starts.
nightmare traffic. You know, like I would have figured that would have accounted into like travel time and all that.
And you know, the
Oh,
funny
but-
thing is, some people are actually using it as an excuse. Well, I didn't know how LA was going to be in terms of traffic. It's like,
Everyone knew. Everyone knows.
do you not watch anything of pop culture? Like, that's one of the biggest tropes in TV and movies right now. Is, oh look, we're in LA. Oh my God, look at this traffic. Like, they do the same thing with New York. I mean,
Right.
like, come on.
But yeah, so the reason I brought that up is because in my mind, something like you said it was called Domad, right?
Domads.
Yeah, Domads. Like I feel like something like that, like a format like that, which to me is like kind of something like I feel like people think that they want a yearly event that is more focused on competition, but in my opinion, like people want something more like Domads yearly, where there might be a competition, right? Like there might be something going on, but it's not the only thing going on. There might be like workshops, there might be like, you know, music, people are mostly there because they want a glove and they want to like flow, and like there you'll always have the option to do that, right? So it's like, I don't know, because at this point I don't think G3 is going to not be a competition. I think that's what people expect. I think that's what Teddy wants to do, and I think that's what it's going to stay as. And I think if it stays as a yearly staple, you know, I think that's good, because there are definitely a lot of people who want a competition. But based on the stories that I've heard, there's also an equal amount of people, if not possibly more, that are more interested in like the overall social element with the side of competition, maybe. So I don't know. Like, it's a thought I had, because Domads, like based on what you told me, McKinley, is something that I would personally be more interested in. Because like I said, I was more immediately ready to jump the gun on the Texas kickback than I was for G3.
I feel like Teddy was just being really ambitious, because at first I just wanted a gloving competition, but then the minute he turned it and added the dancing thing, which I was like, out of nowhere, I was like, I'm shocked, but I mean, I'm not interested.
Right.
I was, you know, very much open to that, but now, I mean, it's very easy to say in hindsight. Maybe we should have just gone straight gloving and got all that footage of everyone, just like Photon kickback style. You know, everyone just in the net. That just the myth right there spinning around. Because now a lot of the big footage is the dance side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which people don't not like, but now they're all saying they wanted more of the gloving. So it just makes it give it a dimmer light than it needed, I feel.
Yeah, so that's where I kind of lean.
How
on
easy
the,
to do in hindsight.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I kind of lean on the whole idea of like, all right, if this is gonna be a competition, let's focus on getting through the competition. You know what I mean? Like, all right, get your competitors there at certain times, so that way you can coordinate with them and talk to them. Like, all right, you guys will be here. Once you're done with your round and you're waiting for the rest of the other flights to finish, you will stay in this area. Once we get through this, then this is the other time that we have set for things. And it's just so people aren't causing delays and wasting everybody else's time. Because that's what I felt like started happening, is that various people would be doing various things that started causing more delays. And so, like, again, this is where me and McKinley kind of like felt like this was more of a reflection on the community at large rather than the organizers. Because they were doing their jobs. No one can take that away from Teddy or his staff. They were doing their jobs, and in all honesty, how they ran it, I couldn't ask for anything better. I've honestly seen worse, and I've heard way worse. You know, again, IGC 2016 is the infamous one that everyone wants to talk about. To me, I think the biggest takeaway from anyone as part of the gloving community should take away from this is a competition. You need to take it seriously, because if you're not taking it seriously, should we be taking you seriously when you ask us to? You know what I mean? Like, it really, to me, that's how I kind of walked away from G3. It's just like, okay, people's understanding what it means to be serious about something is very warped.
Right.
Yeah.
I do wonder. I mean, Peter, you and I have talked about this. That like, if it ever gets to a point where, because gloving's never gonna lose its like original roots and like the rave scene and all that. But we also kind of agree that it's slowly starting to move away and definitely become its own thing. There are enough people who like treat gloving as like a separate subculture that is starting to like kind of come into its own.
Yeah.
So do you think like what do you think is basically, I guess, like the steps necessary to get to that point where we have that community as a whole that we want in terms of that general attitude, because you said like some things are definitely getting worse, so like, that's up for debate in my opinion, but it's like it is valid enough to point out like the flaws that come from like a subculture that you're a part of if you want to try to make things better. So overall, like, what are your takeaways, like, that as a community we could be doing better?
Pretty much understanding and respecting the reality that people are putting up their money and their time to give something for you that you desire to have happen, and need to recognize that this stuff just not poof out of thin air. You know what I mean? This literally takes levels and seriously, like, serious amount of time to actually prep and execute. So literally paying the proper respect, in my opinion, to the people who are literally devoting their time to give you what you're asking. You want a competition? They're giving you the competition. At least have the decency to respect the organizers and focus on what you need to focus on. There's a time and place for everything, and the sooner you get done with stuff, the sooner you have more time for other stuff. You know what I mean? I can definitely see how quickly, if people actually just focus on getting through the competition and not focusing on trying to get those trades in, we probably would have been done in half the time and had all that extra time for all the trades. The other thing is, as well, is that please understand that if you don't feel like you want to take something as serious, like being in a competition, then don't join. Okay? If you want to be there for the spectator thing, that's fine, but also be respectful that people are there to compete and might not have the time to, give you what you would like to do, like a trade, for example, or in my case, an interview. But that's also because I lost my voice, so I couldn't get those interviews anyway, so I didn't bother anybody. But I also recognized and respected that the people who I wanted to interview were competitors who did not have the time to get me those interviews. So it's literally just, to me, the big takeaway is the time management and respecting other people who are devoting time to give you what you want.
Anything to add?
I mean, the only thing I would add is that what they also have to keep in mind is have a plan for is, in case people don't line up and fill those spots, that they have something to, all right, well, we'll extend the time for a trade session or something. Make sure they just have a plan for in case it falls through. Don't not have a plan, or like in a couple of those like nomads, like they had less people than anticipated, so it was more of a scrambling that kind of delayed things. Have a plan to fail. As silly as that sounds, have a plan.
Another thing I would like to add as well, and this actually comes from both ends, from Teddy's perspective, my perspective, the competitor's perspective as well. If you want something like this to happen, like I've always said, I want a gloving convention. You also have to be the type of person who's willing to actually put in the time to actually get that to happen. So, like, if Teddy needs more manpower, I'm more than willing to help try to be some of the camera people to get those recordings. Granted, I don't have that much experience with a GoPro, but I at least would be able to learn the procedure to actually be as efficient as possible. But it's also, that extension goes out to the rest of the community. You want these in-person competitions, you want these in-person events that focus on gloving, you gotta also help out. And if you're willing to help out, that's great. I'm willing to help out, because it's not about me. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is having this happen so other people can also experience this one of a kind of experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that there are enough people in this community who are willing to sacrifice the chance to compete if they can get a free ticket to basically help run the show, right? It sounds like, Peter, like that's something you'd be down for. And like I feel like, in my experience, free entry and basically like a meal can go a long way to convince someone to help run things. Because for someone like you, Peter, like it sounds like at this point you have no real interest in the competition side. You want to help facilitate like the community element of it.
If there's any involvement I have with the competition, I would be much more comfortable in a judging capacity than an actual competitor capacity. But I also understand, to many people, they don't like the idea of judges who never competed before. Even though I've competed in at least 2 different competitions, one in person and one online. And one online, people don't really take it as credible because it was a team competition, so you also had the weight of your team. It's like, yeah, well, can you actually understand the coordination it took to get everybody on the same page to get those videos in on time? A lot harder than you think.
Right. I mean, I think for me...
And they won.
Yeah, and my team won.
Yeah, because I know for someone like me at this point, even locally, I think there are chances where I'll have to judge just because, like, you need judges, right? But also, like, I personally have the best time helping run things when I am behind the camera, where all I have to focus on is making sure everyone's got their camera ready, like the lighting is proper, all that stuff. So I'm sure there are people around who's willing for free entry to help basically behind the scenes in whatever capacity is needed, like especially right now with the fact that like we're not a community as a whole that has a lot of money going through it. Like I think people are understanding that making sure things go off at all leads to in the future more legitimacy where that money is coming in so that eventually people can be paid for putting in that time and effort. Is there anything else you'd like to add on that topic? Because I have 2 more questions before we sign off here today.
No,
just one quick thing.
For me.
The only quick thing is that just in this conversation is I'm going to reach out to my friend Travis who runs Domads. Because, that won the competition. There's plenty of footage. I feel like I don't even need any more. I'd rather just help. So I'm like, hey, yo, what can I do to get ready,
Right.
And I mean, I'll even say this, the more people who are willing to help out, even as a volunteer, the more you're going to make things run smoothly, the more time you're going to give everybody else to get what you want. So if you want to get in those trades, how about thinking about, how about I help out Teddy or whoever the organizer is, help run this thing as smoothly as possible so we can get through this, not as quickly as possible as in like, come on, let's get going, kind of deal. Like, no, just making things as smoothly as possible, because if it runs smoothly, it goes quickly. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It just allows everybody to have extra time at the end. But you gotta help support in whatever way you can. And I'm willing to do the whole volunteer thing if it gives me free entry. Because I mean, what D&D not comps, conventions have like something like that. If you like host a game X amount of days, you get free entry or something like that. I've heard
or even like festivals.
I've heard festivals for like helping out vendors. You can get free entry that way.
Yeah, exactly.
There was another one. I don't know. Anyways, as long as people understand my point. But it also allows you to be there and be involved in something that is not just for you, but for everybody. I mean, that's one of the things that I loved about this experience, is that I never had such a hyper-focused experience on gloving than I did at G3. Faults and all. It was a one-of-a-kind of experience, and I want more people to go to it. But people need to understand that there are some people who just need to start stepping up and being like, all right, I'm willing to devote this amount of time because I want this to work.
True.
And you can't rely on, Teddy's throwing it, so he should be able to get everything going 100%. It's like, he can't do this by himself.
Right, right. McKinley, anything to add to that?
No, I think
Okay.
you're good.
2 more questions for you guys today. The first one is how to actually have a good time when you're going to G3 or to like to like a weekend event like that, because you know, like, having never been to California like as an adult, someone who doesn't know LA very well, you guys are, I mean, people are going to G3 for G3, but right, but there's time around it. You guys talked about the Lighthouse event. You guys talk, I know that a lot of people went to the NorCal kickback or something like that, right?
Yes, the NorCal kickback.
Yeah,
That was a
so
big
fucking
one
awesome.
too.
So any advice for people going to an event like G3, like how to like navigate like California, navigating around the event so they could like also get to these other meetups, like for someone who's like completely new to the scene or someone who's never done this, what is your advice for them?
You gotta network. So when you get, you can't be too shy. You know, you gotta, hey, how you doing? Let's trade. And then maybe not ask everyone, but like try to listen. But consider asking if you really, you know, or had a good trade. Hey, do y'all plan on doing anything after G3 or before said meetup? Or, you know, just ask if there's any plans. How did they get there? What brought you to G3? You know, really, I like to use what's called the Ford. It's like the Ford something. Basically, it's a good way to small talk, because I suck at small talk. So Ford is an acronym. It means family, occupation, recreation, and then dreams. So you start and just go down the line like, oh, well, you know, how's your family? You know, where are you from? Oh, what do you do? Oh, well, what do you do outside of that you like to do? What would you wish you could do? You know,
Right.
and then you can really, you know, it feels more rise and fall. Nice, get to meet somebody and get out of your shell. As far as, and then, you know, if you're in an area you're not from, manage your time well. Have that intention of, okay, well, maybe I should just figure out and schedule out what I'm gonna do a little bit and have a little general idea before just running around, because you don't know how long it's gonna take.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good, especially since, you know, especially when you're at these meets, you know, you do want to meet new people. You do want to get to know these people that you only know kind of casually online. But you know, it's not always easy. And you know, like you said, like small talk is kind of difficult. But I think like what you said, the Ford is a good format, because if you actually have intentions of genuinely getting to know someone, you're not even following that even halfway is going to lead you into good conversation. Because if you actually want to get to know someone, you'll be actively asking them questions regarding the details of what they're talking about, you know?
Yeah.
Peter, anything to add?
Yeah, so besides punctuality and time management, that's just probably one of the biggest takeaway about the community at large, is we need to do way better management over time. But the other thing as well is that please recognize that if somebody's, you know, providing a time and place for us to get something that you know, that is part of one of your goals to get done, like I want to try to get in as many trades as possible. The Lighthouse and the after parties were like the best places to get it done, because that's all what was happening. So that's where it's like, whatever the event is, focus on the details of the event, not your goals, because you'll have a time and place to get your goals. And if it's not at the competition, there are going to be places that you can do that outside of it. You know, so that's what I really took away from that, is just focus on what it is that you're there for. So if you're at a competition, focus on the competition. If it's a slow meetup, that's what is there for. It's to meet and greet people and get those trades in. You know, I mean, other than that, all I can really talk about is the amount of trades I got was just absolutely insane.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of you guys in that regard.
Yeah, I would even say I was so surprising to get three consecutive Conjuring shows.
Nice.
Like, yeah, I was completely blown away, and man, it's been so
Kylo,
long.
Christian, and who else?
So I got Christian, I got
Christian Lim.
Kylo, and
Yes.
I can't remember the third one, but he's on the same. He's on soon as well. I just can't remember his name. But yeah, man, those shows were insane.
Yeah, I bet it was. I'm very jealous.
Kylo was nasty.
I got in a show
Christian's
from Christian when he comes.
Show.
Yeah, I'm
Showmanship.
gonna see him again this year at Katsucon. Very excited for that.
Nice.
Yeah. Anything to add on this topic?
One more. Is there one more question you had left?
I have literally one more question.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I was like, that's pretty much where I'm at. I was like, besides the trades, it's just, we have time and places to do the things. We gotta focus on what we're doing there. So if we're at the competition, we gotta focus on the competition.
I feel like it's a good piece of advice because I think low-key a lot of people in this community have ADHD.
I definitely will agree, considering I am one of those people who's been diagnosed with it. So
yeah, exactly. So my last question is, do you guys have any ideas for like future event formats that you think would be super cool, like annually? I mean, I know we talked about the idea of conventions. I think Domads is like the closest thing to something that I would personally want, like basically like a flow fest with like an emphasis on like the flow arts that we care about, which in this case is gloving, having like what's the word for it, having like classes and like certain panels, and then also a competition. I'm also very interested in potentially, I know that Folly Turtle was doing a series of pit battles live, or it was more like an exhibition comp. That's something I'm actually super interested in. I really like the idea of like exhibitions because you are going as a spectator to see like titans duke it out, which I really enjoy. But yeah, any other thoughts?
I was originally going to be with Premier Gloving, and like that's not happening no more.
What happened with that?
But that guy who's running Premier Gloving had a big falling out with the community as a whole.
Fair enough.
Simply.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, Folly had a big part of the Domass thing. I think it'd be really cool if it was more of a flow retreat, right?
Yeah.
And the intention is we all camp out, and during the day there's gloving and other prop workshops. But then it's kind of similar to like a music festival, right? We're like, I want to go to all these different sets, but there's so many different, all these different workshops, but they're all happening at this time. Some are happening at the same time. Which one do I want to go to? All right, hey, you go to this one, go to that one. We'll both exchange notes later.
Yeah, I think it'd be super neat.
I
that's the kind of
panels and
that I had.
Workshops would be cool.
Yeah, and then you could either have a competition, or I think it'd be cool to have showcases. So it has more of a less judgy feel.
I think that's what appeals to me when you were talking about Prometheus and Domads, was that we have these opportunities for other types of like events, because the main event itself is gloving centric, right? But from there you could take it any number of ways. If you just want to do trades, you can do that. If you just want to hang out with your homies, you can do that. But you also have these other venues of opportunities to express this thing that you love, whether it be a competition, a general competition, a kind of like a invitational only, and then some workshops, some presentations, panels. Like that's kind of what appeals to me about that format, is that it's not just any one thing taking up anyone's attention, but it's all of these potential avenues for different types of expression,
Yeah, to me,
I can imagine that they had like a double showcase.
Yeah, exactly. Just cool stuff like that.
Just, man.
I mean,
many ideas.
To me, the thing I always want to explain to a lot of people when it comes to like in-person gloving events is, I'm just going to refer to it as the bigger umbrella term here. I think having competition is just a component of it would help, and then once we start expanding out, because I would love to have like a point in time like how conventions are, where you actually have like, oh, there will be an hour-long panel with these people on it, and then there will be another panel here later, and you also have like the artist gallery kind of deal of workshops that you can also go to and stuff like that, and get like little tidbits and tricks and stuff like that, while also people who within the gloving community make other crafts and stuff that they actually have the opportunity to vend and things of that nature. So it's all about just kind of like people just committing more to doing stuff like this, whether it's just I want to be a vendor, or I want to help run the panel or something like that. Like we just need more people to commit to that.
Yeah, I agree.
As much, and if people out there are just like, this is just a hobby to me, and it's like, fine, let it just be a hobby to you. Get out of the way of the other people who want to take this a little bit more seriously.
All right. I think I have that was all the questions personally that I had for you guys. Thanks for the insight. It gave me a very different perspective compared to some of the answers that I got before. I feel like if anything, a lot of people that I talked to before were very like I guess like they were consumer centric answers, and you guys had a little bit more of like an organizer centric viewpoint, because you guys were looking at things from all angles and not just
Had the insight.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's really interesting. And I think that looking at what we've been talking about at face value, it's easy to see this as like people might take this the wrong way, right? It's like, oh, like you guys are blaming us for like issues. It's more along the lines of, it's like we're doing this together, so we should all be focusing on getting better at doing this thing that we love, which is perpetuating this community around this hobby that we like love.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was really good discussions we had today. I really liked where this went.
Yeah, and like I said, there's one thing for certain that like I will now forever hold such a reverence towards Teddy, because he's literally showing the biggest form of commitment to organizing these events and running it and putting essentially his money where his mouth is. So there's not much more I can really say besides like some of my favorite trades. One of the biggest things though I loved about this experience is that I finally was able to actually have that in-person conversation with Scott Wilson, aka Merc, since he was also starting content creation when I started. I told him, I was like, you kind of in a way paved the way for somebody like me, and now I'm paving the way for other people who are now trying to come up with content. Like me and Vio are getting ready to start collaborating here pretty soon, so that's gonna be really exciting.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I actually have other ideas with you as well on certain video ideas I want to do, because I think it'll be really, really exciting, and I think a lot of people will definitely tune in for it because it involves the companies. So definitely excited to see where that goes. But yeah, I think one of the things that was a big takeaway overall is this sparked a lot of things within the community. A lot of motivations have been sparked and fed into for a lot of people, including me. So
yeah, I think it was cool because I think one, it reminded people just how much they loved gloving, and not just as this online hobby, but like as something that has a real life component to it. I mean, like the best way to get a show is get a show in person. But I think it also shows, and I think it also reflects on like what people exactly want out of this hobby right now. What are people actually looking for to have a good time?
Well, in that case, I will say this. Since we're now going into post-pandemic, as I'm going to refer to it,
Post-pandemic.
Because I don't want to piss off Mama Susan. Just saying. I think people really, especially in franchise glovers like us, and not post-COVID glovers like maybe Dustin, as I would say, but he's had in-person interaction.
Right.
We seriously lacked that for about a good 2 years, even though we had like drive-in raves or whatever they called them. There was just that lack of social interaction that is so intrinsic into the art form of gloving, that having an event like this really showed people like, oh, this social interaction that we have with each other in person is so valuable, that I'm hoping that it motivates more people to be like, yes, let's push for more in-person events for us to go to. I certainly hope G3 relocates in other states. You know, I would like to see it go to Denver one year, or go to Seattle, or go to what's one of the biggest places in Texas that has the biggest gloving community? Austin or Dallas, I think.
Houston, right?
Houston. Honestly, they're all distinct big.
Okay, yeah, any of the big three within Texas, you know, Austin, Dallas, Texas, or
Houston.
Thank you. I would love to see it go into MVD areas. So I would like to see it be in Richmond, or be in New York, or be in Orlando, or Atlanta, or wherever other big gloving communities are, because, or like even in Hawaii, it would be awesome if it was in Hawaii, you know.
Yeah, it would. People can make it out.
I mean, that's one of the things that I kind of felt bad, is that we didn't get a lot of the people from Hawaii out there for G3. And I mean, it's just because they have such a distinct style to their shows that I was craving that. You know, so that's why I keep telling people, like, there's nowhere else to go but
go to Vietnam.
Hell yeah, definitely would go to Vietnam. I would love that. That'd be awesome. But like that's just, to me, overall, like, there's nowhere else to go but up. But we have to help it go up.
Right. I agree.
The events and stuff that we want are the balloons. We have to be the helium to lift it. As weird as an analogy as I use that.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts? I think I'm good here. I think this was fantastic.
What was your favorite trades, McKinley?
My favorite trades. Dude, that's a loaded question. I loved a lot of them. Yeah, I was like, I loved everyone of my teammates. I loved trading with Freeze, trading with Krusty, trading with R-Dub, trading with Merc, getting that double from Surge, and this girl Enhance. Dude, that was nasty. Yeah, of course, Christian, Ninetales, Liquid. A lot of good. Beelzebub was, that was nice, getting a trade with VO and Beelzebub. Christina, Loose Trap. Yeah, dude, so many people.
Yeah, y'all being jealous right now.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I had a bad trade.
I honestly don't think there was a single bad trade I ever had. But then again, this is like the first time in 6 years that I've been trading with people. So every trade is going to be absolutely amazing to me. But the biggest one that I will take away would be Recursions, Asher's, because that was nothing but nostalgia to me. That was an amazing show. And Tyler's, because they were just so very distinct from everybody. But yeah. Yeah, it was, oh man. I don't know what else to say about G3. It was just, like I say, it was a magical experience that every Glover needs to go experience, because it's literally, you're in a room with a bunch of people who want to do the exact same thing. Have light shows, give light shows, and get light shows.
Nice. Hopefully I can make it out next year.
I can die. I can die now.
Hell yeah, dude.
I can die now.
Very nice. Well, for everybody in my audience and everybody at home, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed what we had to say. I will certainly say, as you guys probably saw at the beginning of this video, that I explained that we had a problem with audio's recording, so sorry about that. Well, we'll do better next time, I promise that. But of course, you guys know how to reach out to us. You'll find all of our social links in the description below. You guys will find all that stuff. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Help me out on Ko-Fi, because it definitely helps me out. I'll certainly say the money that I got from Ko-Fi leading up to G3 definitely helped out with buying equipment and so on. Anything else from you guys?
That's it.
All right. Well, I definitely hope you guys join us next time, because I know next time we join together table talks. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'm sure it's going to be juicy. So, other than that, I hope you guys enjoy yourselves. Bye.